Have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll get started. Chase?
Hi, Wes. First of all, I'm Chase. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Nice to see you.
You too. Just what are your thoughts as you open your first training camp as an NBA head coach?
The funny thing is the basketball part is probably the easiest transition in this job. I've talked about it through the hiring stage, when I first got here, through media day, and the managing of people is probably the biggest hurdle or difference going from lead assistant, associate head coach now into this head coach seat. The basketball part has been great because you're on the court, you're in your element, you start implementing things, as you go, you see the response and the positive rapport that you develop with players on the court. So all those things are transitioning, moving in the right direction. So it feels natural. It's a good feel.
And I want to ask you about Corey Kispert, because you come over from a team that had a really strong track record in player development. As you take a guy with that much talent as a first-round pick, just kind of what do you think is a proper way to bring them along in their first training camp?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, just seeing his maturation from summer league to this point is exciting. And it's also a good indicator where he'll be, throughout the preseason and into the regular season. Obviously, nothing is promised. All rookies go through it, including rookie coaches. So yeah, there's some hurdles and some bumps. It's a learning curve that we all have to go through. But he's shown the development. He's shown progress, and it's exciting to see a guy like that who's been well coached. He's been a 4-year guy, so he's been in those big moments. He knows how to play the game. He knows his strengths. He understands his weaknesses. He's done a tremendous job of getting better every day.
Ava?
Hey, Wes, nice to see you.
Likewise.
Just wondering, since you guys have been in since Labor Day, what's been kind of priority number one in getting all the guys together?
Just developing that on-court chemistry. Aside from the schematics, understanding terminology, getting us reassimilated with each other. It's a new group. It's essentially a new team. So having those guys be on the floor together, whether it's drills, playing open run, getting the opportunity to get to know each other on and off the court, but also developing an understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses, where a guy likes his shots, what kind of actions does he prefer? Some of the simple details of, what box does he like to post on? So all those little things you kind of pick up as a player, and those things you don't necessarily teach because we're not really putting in offense per se. We're just allowing those guys to feel it, play together, and learn each other.
And then I know you've had conversations with Brad before you even kind of met him in person and started working. But I guess when you have those initial kind of conversations, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you just saying like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm about? Can you give us a little bit of insight into what you talked about with Brad and then also Spencer?
Well, I think with both guys, those initial conversations are no different than any other organic relationship that you would develop with someone you don't know. Yeah, I think it's just get to know each other. How do we think? What are your aspirations? What inspires you? Obviously this game has been good to both guys. They're very, very extremely talented players, and I think to have them together is a huge benefit to me as a first-time head coach, but to the organization. But to get to know those guys on a personal level, that's how you build the rapport. And I think once that foundation is established, you can kind of start implementing some of the work-related things. But just kind of get to know them, who they are as people, what makes them tick.
Dave?
Hey, Wes, what excites you most about the roster you're dealing with? Is it the options? As I look at that, I mean, everybody seems like they can play a million positions, so that must excite you as a coach.
The flexibility, depth, is really exciting. You have so many options. You can play small, you play big, bump guys down. You have multiple ball handlers who can create, finish. Obviously, the amount of shooting we can put on the floor is a tremendous dynamic to have, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. And I think it also allows you defensively to do a lot of different things. You're going to have the mobility to fly around. You can switch. So it gives you a lot of options to play with, and to have that is a huge plus.
do a lot of work to be done, but do you allow yourself a moment like, wow, this is pretty cool. This is going to be my team and my training camp?
I don't think I've processed that yet. I know we talked earlier, but it'll probably hit me opening night. The building's packed. The first time I walk out there in an official capacity for the first regular season game, I think that's probably when it hit me. But right at this point, it hasn't felt much different. I think I've had a prominent voice in my past role, which has been great. It's been a benefit to me. So it's a little different, but for the most part, it's been somewhat routine.
Neil,
Hey, Coach, nice to see you again. Tommy
Likewise.
talked a little bit about, putting some caution, things are going to take time. It's a new group, like you said, it's a new, coaching staff philosophy that you're implementing. What are some of the near-term goals, the next week or month that you can look off and say, yes, we checked these boxes and we're headed in the right direction?
When we come to like the small item, the checklist things, it's more of defensive, offensive schematics. Those are the minute details. We're not going to talk wins and losses or, those overall projections. I think, those will come. We have our own internal goals and those will stay internal. But our job is to compete and put ourselves in the best position to win nightly. I think we'll do that. I think these guys are ready to go. They're chomping at the bit and they put in the time. So, that point of starting the season the right way, that sense of urgency. I know it's been an issue at times, and whether it's injuries, COVID, whatever it may be, but that's our priority. We want to get off on the right foot, start training camp the right way, get into the preseason and get off to a good start as the regular season unfolds.
And I know you weren't here last season, but, obviously with the pandemic, training camp being very limited, it was, tough. This season, would you say it's, almost a semblance of back to normal, or there's still some hindrances in what you guys can do?
Well, I think we have to be smart with what we do. And, we're always going to follow the guidelines of the CDC and the city of DC as far as the NBA protocol. And that's ever evolving. I think as the pandemic hopefully slows, but it's going to be with us obviously for some time. So we have to be smart in how we work, but also be mindful that this thing's still out there and we don't want any setbacks, but that's the reality of it. It's here to stay.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Christy.
Hey there, Coach. Great to see you again. With what you said about not necessarily adding in any schematic things on offense or defense, what kind of identity do you want to see for this team, just in seeing them in open run capacities?
Well, I think even before the open run, we're establishing a work culture. And not to say that it wasn't there, because these guys have worked exceptionally hard. But just that mindset of every day. There's no shortcuts. There's very, very few off days. What can we do right now to help put us in the best position, like I said, to get us off to a good start as the season develops? So these guys have done an unbelievable job of putting in the time, putting in the work, being available, and being here every day, whether it's the lifts, the open runs, the individual workouts. They really have, and it's great to see, because that's something you hope that you don't have to teach. So to have them do it on their own is great.
And just one more thing. You said that in terms of getting to know Bradley and Spencer a little bit better, you wanted to know what inspired them, but what inspires you now as a head coach? What is your inspiration in this role?
Well, I think the players. This is a new role for me. It's a new test. And I think just as we challenge players to be better versions of themselves, we as coaches should do the same thing. Obviously, I feel like I'm ready for this opportunity. I'd like to say I'll be a better version of myself next season than I am right now. So the expectations are the same that I would hold the group to. Let's be the best version of you and bring that effort every night.
Thank you so much.
Olivia.
Hey, Coach, good to see you again. We talk about, there's a lot of new players on this team that have never played in front of these fans before. Of course, being on the opposite team, but not playing with the Wizards. How do you prepare them for playing with this organization in front of this fan base in DC?
I don't think it's that much different. I think, every time you step between the lines, your focus should be on just that. You perform at a high level. This is what you do. This is what you get paid to do. So, the fans, of course, that energy is contagious. It's infectious. So, whether that's a different city or it's here. But I do know the fan base in this town is craving, a winning atmosphere. A team that is going to compete and fight, do what they need to do on the floor to eke out a win. But they also want to see a team that's going to play together. So, I think keeping that in mind, but, from the actual feel of it, I don't know how much different it is. But I do know that this fan base has a powerful voice. It's one that gives you certainly an edge at home.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin.
Nice to meet you, Coach. We talked to Tommy Shepard yesterday, and he specifically talked about the defense and you coming in and trying to establish some type of identity, and that's on that side of the floor. What was your assessment of the defense last year, and what do you look to specifically pinpoint this year in order to improve the team's defense?
Well, I don't want to get into kind of, what they did or didn't do last year. I think that's unfair on some level because I wasn't here. And it's easy to look at things through a certain lens and say, well, the metrics and the stats say this. That doesn't mean that's what's being taught. So I think it's a little unfair to cast any indictment. But the numbers you got to own that. So there are certain areas that we can improve on, and defensive side of it is for sure an area of concentration. I think the overall thought of it being a mindset, it's not just on one person. That this has got to be a part of who we are, what we are daily. And I think if we lay that foundation, guys buy in, you'll start seeing the benefits of that.
And what would you say has maybe impressed you the most about the group that you have currently with camp right around the corner?
Oh, I just think the commonality that they've shown. I think they're all eager to get started. They've shown that their willingness to play the right way, that they're competitive, but they compete with composure, that they push each other. And I think, they're starting to, hold each other accountable. And that's even before we really put, any schemes in. So it's great that they're starting to communicate on the floor, figure it out and talk it out amongst themselves. I think the really good teams do that. If it always has to come from myself or one of my bench staff, you're only going to be so good. I think that the more they, take the reins and put the onus on themselves and each other, the better your team will be.
Thank you, sir.
Christos.
Hello, Coach. Hope you're doing well. What result will make you satisfied at the end of the season overall?
Can you repeat the question? I apologize.
Yes. What result will make you satisfied at the end of the season overall?
Well, I think it's, from an internal view, it's, and I've said this before, are we getting better? Coach Malone always used to say it, and we kind of look at each other, in a weird way, but you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And I think that's true because, everyone else is having the same meeting on Monday afternoon, Monday evening. So our mindset is let's not just talk about it. Let's be about it. Let's live it. And, I don't know if that translates into X number of wins, but you'll know it. You'll feel it. And obviously we'll have the feel and a pulse of that group. And I think the more buy-in you get, the earlier that happens, you'll start seeing it, coalesce at the right time.
And also, how important for you is to have a player like Bradley Beal, and what is the most challenging part for you to have a player like him?
Oh, he's multifaceted. He's one of the most dynamic offensive players in the game. I think what's lost is his defensive acumen. He has the ability to do it. And, I think sometimes the burden for him offensively was so high in past seasons that it took a little bit out of him. But to have the depth, the flexibility that we have, I think it gives him an opportunity to take possessions off on the offensive end. So, maybe that gives him the legs and the energy to do it on the defensive end as well. You hope also that that depth will maybe reduce some of his minutes and his workload. So now he can be fresher at the end of games, be fresher going into March and April. And, you're making your playoff push.
Zach.
Hey, Coach. Great to see you again. I have a Rui related question. I think you could say that Rui's had a very solid amount of starting experience and production in his first 2 seasons. What's the next step in his progression, do you think?
Well, I think, anything, after, year two, this experience with the Olympics has been a tremendous thing for him. He actually could take the reins of that group, be the focal point of them for them offensively, probably be the voice for them in the locker room. So that's going to expedite his maturation, which I think will be a tremendous help to this group. It kind of bleeds right into the point I just made with our flexibility and depth. You got another guy who's been there, done it on a high level. Although he's young, he's played in significant minutes on a high stage. So that opportunity, that experience, you can't simulate that. So I think it'll pay dividends for him individually and also for us as a group.
Thank you.
Howard.
Thank you. How does Denny look so far, and what are your plans for him at this point?
He's been great. He looks strong. He's moving well. He's put in a ton of time, and I know we've talked about bringing him along slowly, ramping him up as is cautiously, but he looks great. He's eager to go, and I'm excited to see how it translates. I think for him, the next iteration for him is being a playmaker, playing as a secondary ball handler, at times as a primary ball handler. And I think the flexibility and versatility that allows us to move Brad and Spencer around, other guys around, so now they don't have to orchestrate the offense as much. They don't have to be the focal point of it as much, with another guy who can make plays. His size, I think, will benefit us defensively, give us the ability to switch a lot. His shot making, and along with the other guys, with Kyle, with AG, with Abis, Isaiah, all those guys. So the shooting has been amplified, and you cannot have enough shooting on the floor in an NBA game.
Thank you.
Alif.
It's good to meet you. Obviously, with training camp just around the corner, players, and I'm sure yourself, you have some sight of what you expect from them coming in as a team. I'm curious to know, from your perspective, have you set any goals for yourself about how you're going to judge yourself at the start and at the end of camp?
That's a good question. I haven't really given that a ton of thought as far as my own performance. And I think, that's something that I've talked about to some degree with my staff, just as we do player evaluations at the end of the season. I plan on doing staff evaluations, and it's not just me evaluating my staff. It's also my staff evaluating me. So not necessarily in training camp or through training camp, but I've always been open to feedback. And, I've asked this of my staff consistently from summer league till this point. We'll continue to do so. Challenge me, push me. You don't have to always agree with me, because trust me, I have answers. That doesn't mean they're always right. So, I want, it to be an open forum. The guys who have, a vast amount of experience, on tons of different levels, whether that's the G League, from Europe, NBA and college, ranks. I think it's important to bring best practices, the best ideas forward. We get caught at times as coaches into doing what we've done because we're comfortable doing it. But, stepping out of your box a little bit, continue to learn. And as the game adjusts, as the game grows, finding nuanced ways to implement some things that can help your group.
Chase.
Yes, as you enter camp, sort of what roster decisions, role decisions will you be evaluating over the next few weeks? What kind of do you think you have to settle on as you evaluate through training camp and preseason?
Well, I think a lot of that's up in the air. I think the competitive nature of this group, the depth, if some people may look at that as a problem, I look at it as a plus. At times you're going to have to make some tough decisions, but, I think we're going to do what's best for the group. And I think putting the best pieces on the floor together that complement each other at that time. So, yeah, I never want to lock myself into saying, these guys will play X number of minutes or this guy, that guy. I think it'll play itself out. Obviously, we have some ideas. some that I'm not willing to share, but yeah, I think it's important to also sit back and let the competition play itself out.
And I know you've been asked many times about just coming back to where you grew up, but now that you've officially kind of settled in back as a Washingtonian, I guess, just what's that been like for you after being away so long? I got to get reacquainted with the traffic, so that's probably the biggest thing. But it's been great. I think we've gotten the kids settled. So school is going well. We're still in the process of kind of finding a permanent home, but more than comfortable and just kind of exploring the area, getting reacclimated, getting the better sense of the lay of the land, knowing now that it's changed. 10 years ago, some of these areas, Naval Yard, the Southwest waterfront, they looked a lot different. So it's kind of a welcome home, but also a lot of new things to enjoy and explore.
Neil?
Coach, I think Tommy mentioned that you guys were either planning or already doing two-a-days at certain times. You're saying, with the preseason spaced out, you guys have more opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. Is that more so just because new group, new coaching staff, you're trying to accelerate things as much as possible, or what's the thought there?
Well, there is to your point, there are a number of days that we didn't get last year. So having that extra time is going to be a benefit to us. I think the other thing too is the more we can be on the floor, give us opportunity to teach. I'm not married to, saying, hey, we're going to go 2 days throughout the whole, but giving ourselves the flexibility and the option to do that. That doesn't have to be, 2 hours of just grinded out practice, twice a day. You can also pick a segment and, that first practice could just be teaching. And we need that. So, you teach, you shoot, you script, you move your guys around, get them up and down a little bit. The evening sessions, it gives you a little bit more flexibility to be competitive, do more competitive drills, play live scrimmages, and get a real sense of if there's carryover from the morning session. So it's all on paper right now, but I think as we get into camp, it takes a life of its own, and you just have to read, where we are, schematically, where are we with our physically? Do we need a little bit more? Do we need a little less? So I think it'll play itself out.
We'll take the last question from Ava.
Wes, I had two, so now I'm deciding which one I want to go with. Okay, so Tommy, yesterday we talked to him and he said that Daniel Gafford is pretty locked in so far as a starter on at least on the first day of training camp. What have you seen from him, especially concerning his conditioning? He kind of talked to us a little bit last year about how his fitness got in the way of getting more minutes, and he kind of had to ask out a lot. Is he looking like he's where you want him to be?
Without having point of reference on last year, I think he's right where we need him to be. He's been working extremely hard. And I'll say this, I haven't had the opportunity over the past few years to have a dynamic guy like that. The shot blocking, his ability to change shots around the rim, to run the floor, finish above the rim, be a presence, putting pressure on the rim as a roller. But, his flexibility, his versatility he's very fluid. And for a lot of guys that big, it doesn't come easy. So he's gifted, not only athletically, but, I think he's done a great job with his body, getting back into shape. And he's playing at a pretty high level right now.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Coach, for joining us today. We'll be sending out Media Day information for Monday later this afternoon. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Coach.